As real estate professionals, we were told that if we go out and buy leads, somehow we'll figure out how to convert those leads into sales and we'll build an awesome real estate business. The truth is that model is dead. With lead conversion at an all-time low, we need to ask ourselves this question. How do we build a profitable business that has clients coming back to us, generating more repeat business and referrals, while in the meantime, increasing our lead conversion rate to be profitable on the front end? Real Insider Pro is here to help you answer that question.
Hey everybody, Isaiah Colton here, and we're going live on Facebook right now. And we're also going to be recording this for our podcast, Real Insider Pro podcast. And we're doing a series today that is focused on seller leads, and not only how to generate seller leads, but how to make sure those leads convert. And I'm very excited about today's episode of our podcast because I have Markus Willard, who's going to be joining us in a little bit here from Street Text. And it's really tough in today's marketplace to find and attract listing leads. And what I love about Markus is he's got such extensive experience and he's worked with thousands of clients on this effort to be able to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Markus on here a little bit later today in the podcast, but to kind of set the stage with you of the importance of what's happening in this industry and a framework that I have been teaching all across the country. I want to start off by doing that first, and then we're going to roll into introducing market in today's podcast. So again, today's focus is attracting listing leads. And I want you to be able to do this no matter what the economic environment is. And this starts with our mindset. See, if we're focused on how hard it is to generate listing leads and to find listings, and we keep telling ourselves that how hard it is, what can we expect? What can we expect our results to be, right? Well, if you've ever studied the power of your brain, and you've ever studied a concept called your RAS, it's your reticular activating system. It's a part of your brain that actually picks up information. And here's why this principle is probably more powerful than any strategy that we could ever teach you, because your brain will actually pick up what you tell it to pick up. See, there's so much information out there and there's so much stimulus happening in your life every single day. Your brain has to pick and choose what information that it's going to allow into your life, so to speak. How it does that is through your reticular activating system. And I encourage you to study this concept because it's extremely powerful. So in other words, your RAS will pick up on whatever you're telling it to pick up over time. Something that's interesting is if you've ever been in a crowd of people and you hear a whole bunch of noise, okay? And then all of a sudden you hear somebody say your name. Everything else sounded like white noise, but then all of a sudden you heard somebody say your name and your brain picked up on that. Well, why is it doing that? It's doing that because it's important to you, right? And you've been programmed for that to be important to you. And it's the same thing with our own mindset with whatever we're trying to achieve. So if we keep telling ourselves that it's hard to generate sellers, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm sick of working with buyers. And that's the conversation we're constantly having. And we're not focused on the solutions that are out there, then we're never going to actually come up with solutions, right? We're never going to get to the point where we can come up with the answers that are needed. So our goal here is to present you all the ways, all the options that you can generate seller leads in today's market so you can go and get more listings. Because guess what? There's a group of agents right now that don't have this problem. They've already found solutions. They've adapted to the marketplace. And the one that we're going to present to you today is Street Text as one of those solutions, and take a deep dive and what's happening with social media, what's happening in the world. But just kind of as an introduction here, it starts out with our mindset. If you haven't joined my podcast before or listened to any of our trainings before, one of the things that I'd like to share with you is a model that is very important when you're going to be scaling your business, particularly if you're in the lead generation space. Like if you're using lead generation to scale your business, which I believe everybody should, okay? It's a method I call the Flywheel Method, all right? And essentially, long story short, is that method requires you to bring your marketing, your sales, and your service together, and where you're constantly optimizing the three of those. those major in what I call impact areas of your business. Because at the end of the day, you can be generating a ton of leads. But as we're going to talk about here today, it does not matter if you're generating a ton of leads, but you don't have a methodical system to follow up with those leads, right? That's not gonna matter. And also too, you can go out and you can go out and sign a ton of contracts, but if you don't provide great service to the point where they have such an awesome experience with you that then they want to refer people to you and come back and use you, then you're going to end up on the transaction treadmill and spending a lot of money to get new business, but never build momentum. And if you never heard of a flywheel before, the reason why we use this analogy, because a flywheel is used to produce energy. All right. It's a mechanism that's been around for a long time. And how basically the idea of a flywheel is the faster that it spins, the more energy that it creates. And you want to make sure that you don't have any friction on your flywheel, so it can spin faster and faster and produce more and more energy. And that's really the concept with building and scaling your business. It's the same way. If you look at the struggles that you're having in your business, usually that struggle comes down to your marketing and your sales and your service coming together. So I want you to think about using this as a model to grow your business, because it's very powerful. It's how I personally built a broker-to-broker referral program that ended up generating billions of dollars in referrals, and also building a really strong, powerful brokerage. And also every other company that I've ever launched. We have 3 companies right now that are very successful in their own right. And we use this methodology to launch it. So for today, we're going to be focusing on the marketing part of that flywheel, particularly with lead generation and getting into what it looks like to generate seller leads in today's market. And I'm really excited to have our guest here with us today. And Markus, I don't know if you're with us yet, if you've had a chance to kind of log on and join us. But if you could join us, that would be absolutely awesome, Markus. I'd love to have you tune into this conversation about lead generation. Hey, Markus, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to come on board and talk with you, because it's fascinating right now in this hot seller market. Everybody wants to be a part of this, and we just want to give them an easy solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about lead sources for a second, Markus. And then, first of all, if you haven't ever had a chance to interact with Markus, or you've never heard of Street Text, which they're out there everywhere now, so be surprised if you haven't, because they're a very popular solution. But Street Text is a solution that, from my understanding, Markus, is mainly focused on using Facebook to generate both buyers and seller leads, but you do it in a unique way, which we're gonna talk about the ways that you do that in a little bit, and with the goal to attract attract a seller lead or a buyer lead, depending on what your goal is, and then ultimately make sure we're using best practice to convert those leads into contracts. And Street Text is a great way to do that. And what I'm going to do, Markus, is towards the end of the podcast, I want to make sure everyone knows how to get a hold of you directly as they're listening to this podcast, and they can hear more about it. So, Markus, with all this craziness happening when it comes to lead generation and Facebook and what's happening with social media, why is social media, why is Facebook still a viable way to generate seller leads?
Well, a couple billion people to start, right?
Right.
So, I mean, if you're talking about the biggest social media platform in the entire universe, it's Facebook.
Right.
If you're talking about where baby boomers, Generation Y, Generation X, millennials, everybody, my mom, your mom, we're all there. So it is where people spend the most time is where you should be. And they spend the most time. Studies will show anywhere from an hour or 2 hours a day on social media, probably a lot of it on Facebook. So no one's sitting in their inboxes for you. And I think you got to look at advertising, number one, as an agent, you got to spend money to make money, but where are you going to spend it? And how do you understand the difference between the psychology behind advertising top of funnel versus the bottom. And
I
think
love
a
it.
lot
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Because like when we talk to agents, it amazes me how many agents really, when they're getting into lead generation, in the lead generation game, they'll sign up to programs and they really don't understand where those leads fall.
Yeah.
And therefore how they need to nurture them and the expectations of what their ROI should be. Right. And so let's talk about that. So what is your, when you're looking at social media as in general, or street text leads, what's the psychology behind how they're generated and where in the funnel do they usually fall? Maybe we could start out there.
Okay. So first of all, let's take it a step back. What is funnel? And then particularly, top of funnel versus bottom of funnel. Bottom of funnel would be like the definition of Zillow, the definition of, even someone Google keyword searches, like searching for your services,
right?
Searching to buy a home, searching to sell a home. Where the top of funnel, especially the way we advertise, psychologically speaking, is interruption-based marketing. It's the idea that, practically speaking, I'm a homeowner, and I'm logging onto my Facebook like I do every day as a habit. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what time, when I'm doing it. I'm just going there to be entertained or to see my friends or whatever I'm doing on Facebook. We do it subconsciously. We don't even consciously go there. We kind of get distracted. We look at our notifications. We look at our messenger. We click on little funny videos. We're not there, right? We're not there to unless we're intentionally going into the marketplace, we're not there for anything other than just to socially scroll. So Facebook throws the ad right there as a sponsored ad, but the key psychologically is to create an ad image, ad copy, ad text that gets that person to stop that scroll, flip through, and a high amount of times from that click deliver their contact information, which is we have done very well because we understand the psychology of what type of image, what type of text to use specifically for sellers, which is what we're really known for. And in that moment, that's the key, is you interrupt that marketing. But the truth of that is anyone can do that on a marketing standpoint. It's how to deliver the connection piece to get that person to feel like you're authentically looking to serve them and not just sell them.
That's powerful. So if you would, if you could give us a little bit more background on street text and how basically you help agents do that. Like, because I think that's a very, one of the things that I teach, Markus, is I teach that it's important to have leads coming in at the top of the funnel, and then having leads coming in at the middle of the funnel. And then if you can, depending on your budget, have leads coming in the bottom of the funnel. Yes. And so how does street text help agents bring in seller leads in general? If you could kind of give us a high level overview how you actually do that, now that we understand the psychology.
Well, simply you're connecting to the Facebook advertising aspect of it. So number one, you need a Facebook business page. Number two, that business page is just a vehicle to get in front of homeowners. What you need to know also is that now there's this Housing Discriminatory Act, and that is really important to consider, that you're not targeting zip codes, you're not even targeting towns, even cities. You're targeting 15 miles as a minimum radius. So immediately, if you're going to go on this level, you have to expand your influence and be ready to adapt, because there's no way around it. It doesn't matter if you're the top 1% agent in the world versus a brand new agent. Everybody fits here, which is why I love it so much, because it levels the playing field.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Doesn't that kind of level the playing field from like an agent that is well established versus not? Like,
other than what their daily ad spend will be, right?
Right.
But in the sense, everybody can there's so many fish in the sea, so many homeowners, and in that 15-mile radius, and in many cases that ad can last indefinitely. I've seen it last for more than a year with if you know how to interact with that social algorithm, how to keep it going. But that's another conversation. The key is that ad, and I can show an example. I mean, I think if you're doing a podcast,
Yeah, that's totally cool. Even for our viewers, I think it'd still be great to see an example. And if you're watching this podcast, we'll just share with you how you can get access to the video if you ever wanted to see the example. It's totally cool.
Yeah, and I can explain it all the way too.
Cool.
So give me screen share, and I'll explain it to people that can't see it.
Okay, cool. Let me just go up here.
And then once you do, I'll kind of give you the concept, the high level concept, because it's actually quite simple to explain for people that can't visually see it. Cool. I know as men especially, we're visual creatures.
Oh yeah.
So let's take the concept like this ad, for example. This ad, it says, "What's your home really worth? Enter your address, receive your home's value. Find out in 3 easy steps, guaranteed fast, free, and accurate." That's it. Simple. But what is the actual image? Well, the text copy, number one, remember this. People are seeing an ad like this, they're going to be seeing on their smartphones, number one.
Okay.
So, I'm showing the audience as a presentation on a desktop or a laptop, but the key is to understand the best idea you can get from somebody who's listening in is just go to your Facebook right now and start scrolling randomly. Okay. That's where the ad's going to be. So no one knows it's a realtor. That's the beauty behind our ads. It's not specific. Like, you would miss the idea that there's an agent behind this unless you were actually an agent looking at this, which is why, because everybody comes in here, psychologically speaking, as a realtor, as a broker, putting on their real estate cap and thinking marketing and advertising. Yet you can't be thinking like that. You got to go into the thought process of a homeowner. You got to go into their shoes, not yours. And so what are you seeing? You're going to see something that you use every day. It's called a map. And a map, there's many ways to show a map, whether it's a lidar map. This is a satellite map you're looking at. There's a terrain image map. There's some.
So are you saying you can choose, like with your program, you can choose the different ways to show a map, or do you have a recommendation on a type of map?
Oh my gosh, man. It's never been easier from our creation standpoint.
Oh, look at all that. That's freaking cool. If you're watching this podcast, you got to go back and watch the video at some point. Or if you're listening to this podcast, you got to go back and watch the video.
It's templated. So like, for example, Jennifer Salter's in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I just used her account since she's one of our superstars. But when you look at this, it's almost built in for you, because it takes into consideration where you are located already in your settings. So it'll default on where you are. In this case, this is Raleigh, North Carolina. So it's automatically defaulting on Raleigh plus 15 miles, which is pretty cool. So I can make it a satellite image. I can make it a map image. I can make it a terrain image. In this case, I don't have to go in there and put anything in terms of the city and or county, because it's 15 miles. It's not going to be that. But you have coaches that help you with this anyways, in case you're like, what are you talking about? How do I do this? It's really easy. Obviously, I'm going to say that because I'm creating it. But imagine the days where you had to go figure out the ad manager yourself.
Yeah.
And those days where you're, nowadays, because they're making updates almost every month, we call it the labyrinth of confusion and frustration, really.
Yeah.
Most recently, what happened with Street Text that I think is an advantage to us is Apple iOS made this massive update and disabled anybody running this type of ad out there. All you need to know for in layman's terms, Facebook has a couple different objectives: page post traffic, lead ads, as well as conversion. Conversion is our bread and butter. And conversion is, if you don't have the solution we offer, which is the custom domain, to bypass that, because what you'll find is that we used to be able to run trials that had Street Text on it. And now this gives you an even more competitive advantage, because it's your brand, it's your name. It's going to be like, Markus sells San Luis Obispo, or whatever you want it to be. It's a domain. We buy it for you. It disguises your ad so that nobody knows it's a Street Text ad, number one. And it allows you to continue running ads over this update. So we believe that anybody that doesn't have the solution will automatically go down, and already has across the world. So Facebook, because we are a preferred marketing partner with Facebook, we have first-hand knowledge when they make updates pretty fast before they do it. They give us time to prepare. This is how we prepared, and now we're finding a lot of people are like, high-fiving in our group and getting even better results because all their competition was just basically removed.
Cool. So the psychology here is what's your home really worth? But what I love is you're not showing a picture of a house necessarily. You're showing a picture of a map, which seems to be a little bit of a different psychology.
Well, I mean, and if you want a house, I got a house.
You can do, right. So you can do that too. Right.
I can do the house. I can do, like, right now we have some really cool things going on right now.
Right. So you can see what's converting better, right? So,
well, I mean, and some people are like, well, why don't you use a seller lead ad? A lead ad is a primarily a Facebook lead capture that automates their name, their phone number, and their email. But the problem is you have to have the right call to action to do a seller lead ad, because you can't use a lead ad to capture an address. Okay. So we found some cool ways around it that we're experimenting right now. We have a beta group right now going out there, and we're getting fantastic results in places like Orange County and LA, where, notoriously you're in a very highly competitive area. Well, we found ways to tap into that market in ways that would make you really excited. So, but that's a whole nother conversation. Going back to these funnel templates, what you're gonna love about the way we give you data is that it's full transparency. So you're like, okay, well, where do I even begin? How do I tap into sellers? Well, number one, we rank all of our ads and funnel templates, and we show you how many users there are across the world right now using it. So for example, this is one of my best ads for the seller side. It's over 10,000 people testing it right now to give us a 64.2% click to contact ratio.
Oh, that's awesome.
And if you want to know what that means, that simply means 6 to 7 out of every 10 clicks on an ad give you at least some sort of lead information. So when people are running ads on Facebook, they're like, well, how much do I need to spend? Number one, well, typically our agents spend about $10 a day.
Yeah, that was actually my next question is
$10, no big deal. Yeah. $10, whatever.
It's about a cup of Starbucks coffee nowadays. Yeah.
Starbucks coffee and maybe a muffin.
Maybe right? A muffin. Yeah.
Not me. I'm not using those carbs, but
Yeah.
So here's Jennifer, for example, running a $10 a day ad. She's already spent almost $500 on this ad. It shows you the life of it. She's averaging $1.62 lead.
Wow.
$1.21 cost per click. So that means she's getting at least 8 clicks a day for that $10.
That's amazing.
Right now, so what you need to know though, because you're like, well, what's a lead? Well, okay, let's pretend we're the homeowners. Okay, we see an ad in our newsfeed. It's a 15-mile map radius image of, let's say you live in, in this case, this is Pismo Beach, San Luis Obispo, where I went to school in California. Mm-hmm. And I'm using Kim's account because Kim, we high five because we talk about our favorite tri-tip sandwiches there at Firestones. But if you look at 15 miles, that's going to take you up to Tascadero, down to Santa Maria, and then obviously the water, and the fish don't bite in the water. So there's an advantage when you're using radiuses, because if you understand a pin drop, which is how we target,
yep.
A lot of people need to clearly understand when you go into building an ad, like I always tell people, forget the ad image and copy in the beginning, go straight into dropping a pin and getting really clear that wherever you go, there you are. So if you're not very familiar with what 15 miles look like, start with.
Yeah, that's really good.
Once you start with the pin drop, now you can say, oh, I have to adjust my influence, which is why we run a map, because now you're inclusive to the entire audience on Facebook. And you're, okay, granted, I get it. In some places, you're not going to serve those people or you don't want to, but then learn how to become a referral agent. Because there's no way around it. If you're going to use a Facebook and Instagram,
you're going to get people that outside of areas you don't serve. It's just part of the game.
Yeah, part of the game. So once you lock into that longitude, latitude, which is a little number that we lock into, then we go back and we design the ad image. And then simply, to be honest, bro, it simply is you pick your ad budget, and what StreetText is really famous for is something called a split test. And a split test is running anywhere from a couple to 5 of the same exact ads over a 24-hour period. So really what that means is this particular ad that I was kind of showing you would be going out to 5 unique audiences, 3 unique audiences. Because there's no variables here other than the audience himself. Facebook is going to randomly deploy that ad to an audience of 500 people. Really, that's how Facebook will make an algorithm and or relevancy or performance score within 500 people reach that'll basically tell you this is what your representation of this 15 miles is going to look like if you keep this ad going. So why you run ad split tests is because if we have 3 to 5 unique audiences, I can tell you when I wake up in the morning, personally, I can tell you which ad is going to be the winner based on clicks, based on leads, based on where Facebook is showing it. Because let's just say I get a couple leads from an area that I don't want with phone numbers. I don't want to keep that algorithm. I don't want to reinforce it.
Right. And that was what I was going to ask you, Markus. How long do you do your split test before you make adjustments and choose to put money into the ads that are working? How long do you recommend they go?
Well, so typically when you go to launch an ad like this and you're about to deploy it, I recommend running them $10 each. So if you let's say you're going to run 3 ads, each at $10, that's $30 if you let them stay for 24 hours.
Okay.
That's all you would need before you eliminate 2 of them and leave the best one on at $10.
Okay.
And that's how we run every trial. So when people want to try us, we say, okay, here's what we're going to do. You give me the zip code. You give me the address. I personally will come in there and set these ads up for you. You don't have to do it. I want to make sure you're getting the best ads going. We deploy them. They automatically come with an automatic drip campaign. They automatically come with SMS, automatic text message bot. And within that first 24 hours, you will know how your market is reacting.
That's
and you'll
cool.
have an ad most of the time that gives you this like, oh, lead flow is coming. Now I got to quickly react to how I get these conversations started. And so real quickly, I'll tell you, once they click on the ad, you need to understand the ad itself delivers clicks 60 to 70% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
When they click into that ad, the first thing they see is the actual ad image itself. It's not taking them into some foreign static page. It's taking them to that same image so they don't feel like they're being taken away.
That's good.
That's what keeps them there. They click on Analyze My Property. They start submitting their information. They're like, oh yeah, it said enter your address to receive your home value. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna enter my address. It's not, there's integrity in the process. I click yes, Analyze My Property. And now this is where the rubber hits the road. Send me my property evaluations the next step. And so they're like, oh, so this is where the tire kickers or people that are not going to submit this information bail out.
Right.
Because we're asking for email permission. So
Right.
they have to give a legitimate email and click on a box that says, yes, I want to feed my property evaluation by email. That is the big moment for me, because yes, we're going to get more information about the home. We're going to get the condition of the home, age, updates, renovations, sell date, and trust me, most people put just curious as a defense mechanism. So you have to learn psychology.
Yeah.
How to win friends and influence people, how to ask the right questions. We'll talk more about that. But the moment they go into this moment of giving you information, this is what would activate the ability to see Kim, to know it's a real agent. This would also bring in Kim's Facebook reviews.
Nice.
This would also give this is the 4th layer of the capture where we ask for the phone number and the name. Right. And at that moment, I'm getting an automatic text message. But 2 steps before that, no matter what happened, I got an email. And I still got the address if they didn't give me an email. Cool. So we have these layers coming into your dashboard, activating specific automations. And surprise, surprise, when you think about it, when you go to your email for the first time and you're like, this person's thinking they're getting an instant market value and they go there and there's, this generic email, chances are you're not going to get anything.
Right.
They're going to be disappointed. They thought it was an instant market value. And here you are asking for some age updates and renovations. Now, the difference is, and this is where I teach and coach a lot on understanding the psychology of body language and tonality, is that if you go there and have this unique, authentic, face-to-face video email embedded as an intro, game changer.
Big difference. Yeah.
Big difference. I mean, and if you're working in a model, like I was just showing you with Jennifer, where you're averaging $4 email captures, at $10, that's at least 2, if not 3 a day. face-to-face opportunities. And you got to look at this concept as digital door knocking.
Yeah.
Because they raised their hand, they said, I'm interested in my home's value. Now it's up to you to connect.
I love it.
And,
yeah.
and
So,
yeah.
so let me ask you a couple questions, because I think this is leading to the next question or thought, that a lot of people ask. And sometimes I think people ask it because they just don't understand what type of leads they are, or what the expectation should be. And that's why I love how transparent you are, is you're saying, hey, look, a lot of these are top of the funnel, maybe some middle of funnel leads. So your lead conversion strategy has to adjust to that type of lead, which is kind of my next question is, in my mind, when it comes to generating leads of this type or using street text, there's probably good converters, there's probably great converters and superior converters that you see in your client base, right? And what would you say a good converter's expectation should be if they're using some of your best practices, but maybe not all, right? Versus somebody who's great and then somebody who's superior. What would you say those conversion rates would look like based on how good they are at their follow-up and using some of the best practices you teach?
Great question. Number one, you got to create this conversion percentage based on at least a year.
Based on what?
A year.
A year, right.
Follow-up. Because my problem with most people starting a program like this, top of funnel, is they give up so early. And they're like, well, I didn't get a deal in the first 3 months. I'm like, you shouldn't have been measuring conversions. You should have been measuring conversations. So my challenge to people is to look at a funnel like this as contribution first, go-giver mentality mindset, looking to discover and create conversation, an authentic conversation that makes people feel like their relationships first.
Yep.
In BombBomb, we call it the know, like, and trust model. And so the key is you have to have a healthy mix of authentic automations and personal follow-up. So when you're talking about lead conversion, my best agents that are doing 10 or more deals from Street Text specifically, from Facebook specifically, with $10 of an ad budget, that's because they've been with us for more than a year. They've developed the pipeline.
Right. They've developed the pipeline. They've built the momentum. They built out their follow-up. They've gotten in the rhythm of it.
And I can't tell you over and over again, they're also attending the masterminds that we have every Wednesday. Mm-hmm. They're giving back to our community. They're participating in an insider group. They're learning about how to nurture their leads. They're using integrations like HomeBot, which are very effective. They're all using video, and they know how to personally touch and check back in just to say hello and say thank you and let people know when the market has shifted and changed.
Right.
And I think that in itself has to be like, you can't just set it and forget it with this program.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question. Like, what are the top 3 to 5 strategies to convert seller leads through Street Text? What would you say those strategies look like? It's
funny you're asking, because I got off a webinar yesterday with Alicia from BombBomb. She's the national speaker. You should have her on sometime.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd love to.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And number one, when you got to look at this, the most important takeaway is the first impression you're going to make. That could be your last. So if your first impression is not genuine and authentic, you got to remember, from the homeowner's perspective, it doesn't matter whether they were clicking on a buyer ad, a listing ad, a seller ad in this case that we're talking about. They have an expectation around what they're getting. And if that doesn't meet that expectation, the moment they go to where they thought they were going to get, or whatever they were going to get, they're going to be disappointed. And oftentimes that's the last chance you have. You have to backpedal. So you need to help create and identify why they're getting something different. And so what we talked about, and which I really loved, is that especially with video, you always you lead with empathy, followed by value, then your call to action. Empathy, value, call to action. So, if someone clicks on the ad like this, your empathy, for example, would be, I can't imagine how you're probably feeling right now, thinking you were getting an instant market value, and here I am, telling you something different.
Yeah.
Right? Just an example. Value, but I think you'll be very impressed to know that the market has shifted, things have changed. What you're going to find on the internet by Googling your home right now is outdated. It's an algorithm. They're going to tell you values that are not true. And unfortunately, your home's custom. It's something that can only be given as a true market value by me learning a little bit about your home. Right?
Yeah.
Value. Call to action. Here's what I can do for you. I can scour the MLS, find comparables like yours, look at recent market sales and give you an internet's best guess as well. That'll be far more superior than anything you can find online. Or I can do something that's more in tune. Just say thank you. It's complimentary, it's free, there's no obligation, and it's my way of giving back, especially in these times. All it would require would be a quick conversation. We can meet on FaceTime or Zoom. I can do a 15-minute complimentary walk through the home. Right? You're giving them options.
I love it.
Or if this is it's just too much for you right now, just go ahead and send me back a reply of anything I should know about your home that I could factor in and calculate. Even pictures would help.
Nice.
I just made that up, but that's that. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
the type of impression you need to provide if they thought that they were getting something, and now it's just a matter of understanding that with tools that you have,
Yeah.
tracking. So number one, like, you need the video. Number two, you need tracking. So tracking is big because you don't rely on automations to do that for you. Sure, what else? Okay, so I submit my information, an automatic email goes out, but what, 50% of those are opened?
Right.
So how do you get that people that are not opening it to open?
Yeah, and I think what I love about your strategy too is that there's so many agents that won't do this. So you can separate yourself from any other competitive. It kind of gives you a competitive advantage because, like, the fact that they open up an email and see a video that you took the time to even do this, to me is gonna, you want to talk about first impression, it's gonna separate you from your competition.
Yeah.
Like,
don't forget, when you have a phone number, you have text, and don't forget that they found you on Facebook. Why are you not reconnecting on Facebook?
Yeah, right. I was just absolutely.
The business standpoint, I'm talking about, that's a whole nother conversation. I teach people how to use Facebook as a CRM because it's powerful and massive, because you can track everything. You can create friends lists. That's a whole.
I'd love to have you. I would love to have you do another podcast with us on that topic if you're open.
Yeah, I think you'll love it, because we are in a relationship-based business. Everybody's looking for the next best CRM, not discovering that it's actually right in their hands and it's free.
Yeah, let's plan on doing that soon. That sounds like a very interesting topic.
Let me just tell you, let me put it this way. There was a time where I almost capped out my friends at 5,000.
Yeah.
And now I'm less at 1,000 intentionally.
Right. Because
I create mutual influence with people. So if they're not looking to create mutual influence with me, it's especially in my business. I'm not talking about I'm like my friends, my buddies, right?
I love it. it.
I know where people are at all times.
Well, your engagement's going to be better too, right? Because you actually have people.
My referral business is off the hook for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because they see me every day. They know my intention. They know my heart. They know I'm here to serve and teach and coach and give them my all. And they get to also recognize that I have a life outside of just
right.
I have four children. I have a beautiful wife. We're doing homesteading. I love to teach about health and fitness and nutrition as well. And, I think people need to find the human side of you. If you're wanting to do the top of funnel, don't be this suit. Okay.
Yeah.
Be yourself and build your tribe and let people know all of you. Because to be a social media influencer, you got to be transparent. You got to be open. You know, obviously integrity and honor and all that good stuff. They need to see somebody that they can know and like before they trust, especially if they've never met before.
That's really good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that podcast, because there's a lot there to unpack. I have some questions that are common questions, and also some people that are coming that are watching from my private Facebook group for you. One of the questions that came in is if if you were to set up a budget and you wanted to get 12 transactions a year using street text, what would you recommend the ad spend be, knowing that there's a ramp up period?
Yeah.
And factoring all that in, what would be a realistic budget to get, let's say, 12 transactions a year?
I mean, so you got to take into consideration there will be A/B testing and split testing to find the ideal ad. So once you find that, then you kind of can taper it out to that $10 a day ad spend. But every market's going to be unique and different. So when this person is asking you, if you're asking me from, Beverly Hills, California, or from Fargo, North Dakota, I'm going to have two different answers.
Yeah. So let's use San Antonio, Texas as an example.
Yeah. I mean, Texas, I don't see like any problem with the $10 a day ad spend. I mean, you probably want to give yourself $100 to play around with while you're beta testing and split testing. And, also you have to consider, are you running seller ads? Are you running buyer ads as well? Because we do them both. Are you marketing your own listings? Because we do that. So it just depends on how you're advertising through Facebook. But typically, if I compare you to my top agents, so you can either figure this all out yourself, or you can go and take Jennifer Salter's course, who's done 20 deals in 20 months, and say, okay, I don't need to figure out this myself. I don't have to read.
So you have a best practices where if they just follow the best practices.
I've got several people. Nikki Patel from the Lab Coat group, and she's also a street texter, and she's done 30 deals with street text. Jennifer's done 20 in 20 months. One of our best agents, I'm not going to say her name because she doesn't want to be in the spotlight anymore, has done over 200 deals out of Fort Worth in 5 years.
Wow. That's awesome.
So
what would you say, like, if you look at the success stories, this is the next question is with the importance of follow-up, how many times do I need to follow up on average to lead to a meaningful conversation, I believe is the question. Yes.
Well, I mean, what do they say? 12 touches is at least I think ultimately you just got to reinforce that until you get the conversation initiated, you never give up. And then once you get the conversation associated, be an avid note taker and go back and track, because you need to check in. You need to, they say you need to stay at top of mind at least once a month, if not twice a month.
Yep. So
for me, I'd rather be there every day. That's why I'm going to try to create the Facebook relationship as fast as possible.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that seems like common sense. Like, yeah, I should reach out to them through Facebook Messenger and touch base with them because that's where they came from. But I bet you a lot of agents don't do that, right? They don't even take the time to do that.
Oh my gosh, man. They think that they're supposed to get deals by simply giving them a home value report and saying, that's it. And I'm like, well.
And that goes back to the psychology. Would you,
you just gave away all your leverage. You just gave away all your leverage. Yeah. You didn't even ask them the questions. You didn't ask what they love most about their home. What would they change about the home? What are they looking to accomplish? What are they doing with this, with their equity? You didn't go into discovery. You just thought it was some generic ask. And that's your problem. You kept it surface, and that's why you're not going to get the deal and someone else will.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. We got time for one more question. This one is from actually one of our account managers, because we've been representing street text. We've been recommending street text a lot to our clients. And so this one's from our account managers because they got this question from one of our clients. They said, well, what makes street text different than other seller lead generation sources? I thought that was a pretty good question. So maybe you could answer that for us, Markus.
I mean, that's like multi-layered, but I'll say number one, it's our community. We have a community of people that love to serve, to contribute, to give. There's no competition. There's no exclusivity. There's nothing, we have, for example, I have half a dozen agents in Las Vegas using street text and all high-fiving and sharing with one another. We have actually had a couple of agents come together that were working separately and joining teams.
Oh, cool.
Because of the masterminding, because of the conversion workshops, because they realize that Facebook is a place where everybody can win. you don't have to worry about exclusivity anymore because you're tapping into 15 miles. So it doesn't matter who's who. Everybody runs an ad. Everybody taps into algorithm. Really what it comes down is your follow-up.
Right.
So because we work like that, I think that gives us a competitive advantage as we give people as much time they need in trial. And then we welcome them to, even if the trial expires, we welcome them into the community. They can come to the masterminds, workshops, conversion, be in our Facebook group, learn from the community, use all our free resources and training for life, even if they don't come on board.
That's awesome.
And many people will come back months later and say, wow. Like I haven't learned this much in even some of the coaching services that I and it's all free. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. The investment is with your time. If you're not willing to put the time in, you're probably not going to be a fit. And that's the truth. So that's why we give you a trial, because we need to make sure you understand the vision, the picture, the sacrifice of your time to become successful.
Yeah. Because that's no matter what lead generation service you sign up to, it requires follow-up, which requires time, which requires strategy, which requires learning. But most of the time, a lot of these other companies, they don't have that good of a community to be able to learn those strategies. And that's what I love that you're providing. And I think that's so powerful, because we take pride in that as well.
It's daily. It's on Zoom. You literally have daily sessions you can come to. You have your own personal like concierge coach, always walking you through the best practices. And we're also the best seller lead generation on the planet. Like I haven't found any other company out there that does Facebook leads like us with the stats, transparent in front of you. They'll hide it. Ours are transparent. We put all our stats in front of you to show you exactly what our best ads are doing. And I don't know anybody that can do that way, like especially with tens of thousands of data points.
Yeah, that's amazing when you show me some of the statistics and how you can track what the ad performance across your ads. That's so cool. That's such a cool, some cool insights. I'm going to transition here into our next section where we're going to be talking about, I want to talk about top strategies to increase conversion rates on online leads and kind of give them a checklist. And I got a checklist prepared here, and I've actually watched, this is my specialty is lead conversion. So a lot of this is a combination of what I teach, and then also what I know you guys teach, because I actually went online and I watched a couple of your videos in advance of this. So in full transparency, if you're watching this video afterwards, if this is turned into, a blog on our website, this is a combination of street text and some of the things that I teach kind of coming together with this checklist. And I think this is going to be a great conversation, Markus, for us to have with this checklist. And so the first one is, the conversation about speed to lead, right? And I know you guys train on this a lot. We have a service that's dedicated towards speed to lead, which engages with a text bot backed up by a 24/7 ISA to make sure that lead converts and is reached out to in a timely fashion. One of the things that actually I saw in one of your videos that Inside Sales put out, which is a really awesome group. And they talked about how you have a 400% chance, the chance of increasing, the chance of converting the lead decreases by 400%.
Yes.
And so I think let's talk about that. Importance of speed to lead. What do you guys train? What do you talk about that? I know there's the 5 minutes. Anything else you want to add to that first point?
Man, speed to lead, absolutely important. But even more important to that is the authenticity of that speed to lead. Because if that speed to lead feels like a bot, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're smart, man. We don't give general human beings more credit.
Yep.
Like we're smart. We have the attention spans of a goldfish. 6 seconds or less.
Yeah, and that's why, like, if you're using one of those canned bots that it's like a canned script, you got to get rid of that. If you're going to use any kind of bot, it better be smart and really intuitive, so it comes across authentic, or else just get rid of it. Like
exactly. Even more so, remember your brand yourself. Brand you is you need to change your automations, both email as well as SMS that automatically go out to reflect your own personality and how you would say it.
Right. It's got to be custom towards your brand. I love it. That's good.
And even if you're a team, like I get a lot of people that come in and like, well, I have a team, and how do we do it to serve a team? I'm like, well, it's called screen recording. And And, you know, if you leverage something like BombBomb, for example, you can be a voice in the background showing a presentation of how your team's going to get in touch with them.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things too is within that first follow-up, I recommend what we teach is using a video text, where you don't just send out a text message, but you actually send out a short 20 to 30 second video text. One thing that's nice about our software is the video text messaging is built into our marketing hub. So you don't even have to leave your environment. You can have your leads flow. Let's say you wanted to sign up to Street Text, you could have your leads flow from Street Text into our system. And once that lead comes down, you could literally click a button, record a 30-second video, and then launch it and send it to them. And they get a text message. And what a powerful way to say hello and introduce yourself. And if they see video, and here's the thing, this is such a simple technique, but as many times as I trained it, I'm sure you've trained it 100 million times too. There's so few agents that are engaging through video text or video email that it blows. I see Markus shaking his head. It blows our mind. Same thing with Facebook Messenger. Same thing with Facebook Messenger. We're still doing texting. We're not using the video app within Facebook Messenger. And the power and the psychology of that visual connection, which we don't have time to take a deep dive into, but just understand, it is a major difference when they see you.
Body language and tonality. Body language, tonality. You text communication has massive chance to be misinterpreted, and it's always going to go against your favor when you're leading with your own body. Like, that's why video is so important, because even if, what I love with video, for example, even if they can't play it at the time, the body language, especially with a GIF, which is that first 3 seconds, the body language shows you smile. It shows your personality a little bit. That could be the only chance you have at that moment, and they haven't even listened to your tonality yet.
That's right.
So you need that opportunity, especially in this day and age where you're competing against everybody for their business. They're going to go with the person that makes the impression.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you're following up, you want to create a follow-up system, be authentic, make sure it matches your brand, and use video.
And think of it this way. Here's an amazing quote by Maya Angelou. It can be more true to this day right now. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good. That's a great quote. Next is you want to make sure that you're relentless with your follow-up. So some people say call twice a day. I'm a fan of multiple touches early on. So if you're like, well, twice a day, Isaiah, that seems like a lot, right? Well, here's the thing. Most of you are going to struggle to call once a day, but you got to call and you got to contact, and especially in the very beginning. What's that?
If you even have their phone number, right? What are you going to do if you don't?
Well, use Facebook Messenger, right? So,
right. Or what if you don't have that?
If you don't have Facebook Messenger, then you need to use their email, and you need to reach out to them by email.
And
so any way that you can to touch base with them, then you need to use any way that you can possible. Send them a mailer.
I say that because in many cases, I've found people take address onlys into $1 million listings.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's
with
really powerful.
trace systems like Spokio, True People Search, you can find people's tax records and cross reference it.
Oh yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, Markus, that people one of the things that clients like about us is we actually have a reverse lookup that happens automatically within their database when it comes in. So the lead comes in and it's already searching and looking for that information. And about 40 to 60% of the time we'll find a phone number that they can use. And but to your point, if you just have an address, it's an opportunity. It's still an opportunity, right? So we take that address, and as long as we have an address, we can find out their email, we can find out their cell phone, we can find out a lot of other information that definitely helps them work leads. But really good point. Don't want to discount it. It's still a lead.
And I always tell people too, is like, remember this: if you have an address, you can't assume it's the homeowner. It could be a renter, it could be a buyer, it could be it could be anybody. Right. So it's how you create that communication and make that person feel, even if it wasn't them, that it's still for them.
Yeah, that's really good. Next strategy is they're gonna make sure that you have a really good tracking system built out. So one of the things that we talk a lot about is to make sure that you have a 30, 60, 90, and then something that's like a year out, and making sure that in your CRM, it's set up to have that kind of pipeline built. Because if you don't, the worst thing that can happen, it happens all the time, is you spent the money on the lead, you spent some time nurturing it, and then when they get into their sales cycle and they actually start entering into the buying cycle, they end up working with another agent just because of our follow-up wasn't in order.
I can't tell you how many agents I've worked with personally that signed up for 3 months, stopped, came back, we vetted out their leads, and it was like a kick in the butt because they had to look at all these homes that went on the market with another agent.
Yeah.
And I said, I told you in the beginning and you didn't listen to me. This is not your next 90 days. This is your next year. And if you're not ready mentally to commit to that, I don't mind somebody who starts an investment with us at 3 months, but you have to mentally prepare for the year.
Yeah. Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to change no matter what lead source you're using. You're going to run into that in a geographical farm. You're going to run into that when you're working with for sale by owners who want to wait because they need to try on their own. You're going to run. It always goes back to the follow-up, right? It just, what I love about Street Text is it's an affordable way to do it. You can generate lots of opportunities, and you can attract sellers. It's a great way to attract sellers. So next strategy is to, this is another reason why a lot of agents lose deals. They actually take the time frame that the seller tells them as fact. Yeah. And that's when they follow up with them. So I know one of the things that Street Text teaches, as well as we do, is whatever they tell you, let's say they say 6 months, you want to make sure your follow-up system is set up to cut that time in half, to make sure that you are set up to follow up with them before they get too close to that sales cycle, because you don't want to lose the deal because you waited too long to follow up. Anything you want to add to that?
No. I mean, I think this is where systems like HomeBot can help, at $25 a month.
Right.
So awesome, because you don't worry so much about, and the truth is we know there's some incredible integrations coming out. Like we're working with Zapier right now. And I advise a lot of people to go in there and, tune it themselves before they let it go out.
Yeah.
But in general, the advantage of having something like that go out is that you get reports as soon as someone opens and interacts with it. And that's your opportunity to check back in. That's your opportunity to send a personal follow-up. And it's going to show things like their value and how to tune the market value, but also equity and mortgage information and, investment Airbnb scenarios. Really at $25 a month, it's hard to go wrong with a system like that.
Yeah, it really is.
When you're a beginning agent or you're just somebody who's trying to make sense of where to put your money in your budget.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is right now, your best thing to do is build your pipelines and do it affordably and do it in such a way that creates connections and makes that person feel like you're in it for them forever. And if you do it that way, you're going to be different. You're going to be unique, and you're going to, your business is going to all of a sudden take off where everybody else is focusing on the business right now, not thinking about the future.
That's so true. That's a really good point. And the other thing that I guess to kind of feeding off of that is making sure that you have integrated systems, right? So making sure that your the leads are just not sitting there in an ether in a place that you never log into, right? And it seems very simple, but one of the things that when we onboard a client, we find there's massive fragmentation with all these tools that they're using, and none of them are communicating with each other. And it's a major, major problem. So one of the things that one of our missions with Real Estate Nexus, the reason why we developed that name in the first place is because really at the end of the day, your database should be the center of all things that you do. And therefore your integrations have to be at the center. And that's what Nexus is, the center point of all things. So if you're going to be building a business, you're going to be scaling your business, and you're going to be investing in lead generation, a major part of this making it all work is making sure that you have integrated systems speaking to each other. So that way you can launch an effective database marketing strategy.
Amen.
Through multiple channels, right? Whether it's text, whether it's email, whether it's phone. And just a plug for ourselves, if you haven't checked out Real Estate Nexus, that's what we do. That's what we help you do, is we launch a whole database marketing strategy for you, not only just providing the tools, but you actually have an account manager that will manage this process and build it and do it for you. Okay. So that way we're there, we're an extension of your team. And then what you do is you plug in your authenticity in the process, and we take that and make sure it runs properly on the back end for you. So next thing, big mistakes that a lot of agents make is they give up after two or three contacts.
Yep.
And then they're like kind of washing their hands of the lead, right? So how often do you see that? How do people overcome that mindset, Markus, to stop making that mistake?
Oh man, I mean, I think it's just accountability and being around a community of people that are just showing you the way, because your bad habits come into this business. And if your bad habits are so used to getting people that, you know, basically called you, or you know, like a lead, like a Zillow lead, or you're so used to having that first touch, second touch, and you're like, oh, I got it. Where this is something that you have to learn how to not only give without expecting anything in return, but then continue to check in and provide value, and really value stack. Let them get to know you, let them get to know your community, let them get to know your resources, you know, because you know a lot of people that can help them outside of your own services. So I think part of that is just checking in and being a go-giver, and then just offering value every step of the way. And when you do that, they begin to be like, wow, this person really is in it for me, and not just trying to list my home. You know what, honey, we're going to go with you. Or, you know, you follow up with a little Starbucks coffee card to say thank you whenever you're ready, coffee on me. But it's that coffee for $5 that made the difference in the inbox. And they're going to go have a coffee thinking of you because no other agent done that for them before. And that $5.
Right, it's that personal touch.
Yeah, that $5 touch the relationship for their future business. Or they've been like, our agent never did this for us.
Yeah.
And I don't like our agent anyways. They never check in. Or they feel obligated. They feel obligated to that agent, and so they're going to stay with them, but they're going to tell everybody else about you, and so they're going to get your referral business.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of goes to there's 2 or 3 major points, just kind of wrapping up this section here, where we're going over strategies to make sure that you convert your leads. The first one is that within all the leads you're generating, okay, there's around 3% that are ready to go in the next 30 days.
Yep.
And that's the challenge that you have, is getting in front of them, giving them that personal touch, and make sure you have really good follow-up systems. But then understanding that the rest of them, okay, are going to be ready to go in the next 7 to 12 months, and not discount them. And that goes to our psychology of understanding what type of leads these are. And then if you provide value, like Markus has been talking about, you're gonna be surprised. They might not be ready yet, but they might even refer you to other people.
Yeah.
We see that happening a lot, right? And one point that I think, just wrapping up, when it comes to converting leads, particularly these type of leads, you have to treat these people. If you heard Markus, he's saying it, I'm going to say it a different way, but this is what he's been saying over and over and over throughout this podcast, is that you have to treat these leads like they're part of your sphere of influence, and continue to build a relationship with them. And that's how you're going to win with street text, by the way, with every other lead source that you have, okay, coming in, is making sure that you treat them like they're part of your sphere of influence. And that's how you increase your lead conversion rate.
Well, and I will say, you want it humanized for yourself. So you spend all this time making authentic automations and authentic follow-ups and using video, but you also need to humanize it in such a way where you don't look at them as a lead anymore. And the only way you're going to do that is to go profile them. So use social profile, use LinkedIn, use Google, find who they are, look up a little bit about them. You know, that's so important to make the human connection for yourself, or you're never going to see them as someone you're going to create a relationship with. Yeah,
that's so strong. So how you increase, going on to our next section, how you increase your lead conversion rate to, if you want to get up past that industry average of like that 2 to 3% over the course of a year, and you want to get past that, okay, you use the strategies that Markus has been talking about.
Yep.
That's how you do it. There's no secret. The secret is what Markus and I are talking about with you, if there is one, right? But it's not. Here's the thing: people are like, well, they're just more talented, they're just more handsome or pretty. They just have better. They have better connections than I do. They're better on the phone. Here's the thing. I guarantee if you look at a layer deeper than all of that, it actually goes to what Markus is talking about. And that's connection, persistence, value add, and they actually give a crap. Right?
Well, and don't forget too, like I have the full focus planner. You need to write, record, reflect. You need to measure everything. Like insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So part of that is just recognizing what's working, what's not. How's my communication coming across? And, you know, time blocking appropriately, because you're not going to do anything like this and just expect it to work.
Yeah, that's really good. So 7 quick things for our audience when it comes to measuring results, because Markus is really, he's so on point with this. We do have to be looking at our skills, right? And how we're communicating, whatever form of communication, it's really the same thing, is how you're building rapport and finding pain and motivation. So that's number 1. Number 2, what you're doing to add value. So building value. Okay. The third thing is make sure, you know, what are you doing to create urgency and desire to want to go to the next step? And then from there is making sure that as you're building relationship, you have little trial closes to keep moving the process forward. So you're trial closing, you're getting agreements. And then also too, make sure you know the most common objections. That's number 5. Make sure you know the most common objections that you're going to get, know how to respond to them. And then make sure that you have fanatical follow-up, right? You're fanatically following up. You have really good best practices, and what Mark said, tracking your metrics. Those are kind of like the 7 things we teach, Markus, in our conversion courses, is we kind of really hyper focus on one of those at a time. And Markus, tell us a story of that maybe you have off the top of your head of somebody that maybe started out with street text. Maybe they ran through a few bumps in the road, but then are having success with your program now. If you can think of a story off the top of your head.
Yeah, I mean, man, I can't tell you. I can list a dozen people.
Yeah, one that really sticks out to you. That maybe didn't start off maybe smooth, like because they had to figure out their follow-up or something, but now they're having some success. Is there a story you can think of off that?
Yeah, I can think of Allison, who was on our mastermind a couple weeks ago, and she came up pumped, excited, because she just didn't feel like her style of communication was suited for video. She wasn't that type of person. She was more the type of person that would just meet them where they were based on the kind of communication they were sending. Yeah. And so not aggressive whatsoever, which is good, but just not open to using video and so forth. And so she struggled with the first few months. And then, you know, probably about 6 months in, she started having some really great conversations. And then it's been a year now she's been with us, and she has at least a half a dozen deals, and they keep coming back.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And they keep coming back because she stuck with it, and she started just seeing that it was just a matter of finding her authenticity and how she was going to connect. And if she did it in that way, it wouldn't have to be anybody else's style, just in a way that really authentically connected with somebody and made them feel like their best interest was in mind. Then these people just start coming to the surface, and they say, come on over. Let me introduce you to this person. So again, it's a mindset. It's just doing everything you possibly can to get an opportunity to connect into a relationship. And I think you just got to understand in today's day and age, you have to figure out how to do that in a way that it's going to be exciting to you, because or else if it becomes mundane and tedious and cumbersome and frustrating, you're never going to do it.
Right.
So all I can tell people, I don't care if you're adverse to video or anything else for that matter. If you're just a powerhouse when it comes to picking up the phone, or if you're someone who's going to go door knock, whatever you do it with passion. Yeah. And give it your all, and make sure, you know, that person knows that you're in it to serve, not just to win their business.
I love it. And I think that leads me to the kind of like every podcast, I'd like to wrap up with a quote. Yeah. And since we're talking a lot about conversion, I just want everyone to keep this in mind. Every aspect of marketing is entirely useless unless you're producing a conversion. So just like, again, I'm going to say it again, every aspect of marketing is entirely useless unless you're producing a conversion
Yes.
at some point. And so we need to be thinking of our marketing and looking at those things that produce conversion throughout our marketing efforts. And going back to my flywheel analogy, you have marketing, sales, and service. If you're going to build a dynamic business, they all got to come together. And conversion is such an important part of your marketing efforts. And I'm really excited to have you on here, Markus, with us. And I want to make sure that we lead with some action steps. Number one, okay, if you're looking to generate seller leads, I know buyers are great too. You can get a ton of buyer leads too from StreetText. You got to check these guys out. So Markus, if you want to share your screen quick and show us that promo page and where they should go to check that out, feel free to pull that up now.
Well, it's gonna. So there is a little number.
Okay.
It's gonna be hard. I sent you the little link on the chat box.
Okay.
You can take that. I mean, it's really just streettext.com is the website.
Okay. Cool.
But with the number attached to it, that will ensure that they're coached directly by me. That'll also ensure that their domain setup fee is waived.
Awesome.
Because if you want those two, you want, obviously, I mean.
Yeah. I would definitely highly recommend getting coached by Markus.
So you can go to anybody. We have a fantastic team of coaches, but specifically if you want to be trained by me and domain fees waived, we'll give you that little link.
Okay.
To take advantage of.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we put that link in all of our content.
And I mean, if you can't figure it out how to find that link, just message me on Facebook. That's where that's it. Markus Willard.
Awesome. I love it. And then the final takeaway is action step is focus on creating relationships and leverage technology. We want you to leverage technology to be able to do that, but you still have to make sure that it's authentic, right? Is make sure that you have an authentic approach to leveraging technology. And that's really what we're here for. We want to be here to connect you with great lead sources like Markus and like StreetText, and be here to help you with your database marketing strategy. So that way you can find the combination of leveraging technology, but also making sure that it's authentic. And so you can maximize your conversion rate and scale your business a lot faster than if you just don't really have a marketing strategy or approach. And that's why we recommend StreetText, because we feel like we complement each other pretty well as far as our missions and what we're trying to do in the marketplace. And so we really appreciate you guys tuning in today's podcast. It's Isaiah Colton here with Real Estate Nexus. This is the Real Insider Pro podcast, and we will see you next week.